NPM joining GitHub, new Visual Studio, update on conferences, and much more in today's M&AN Show. Hello everyone, and welcome along to a new episode of the M&AN Show. What a week! Today we have a ton of news, so let's start straight away. The first one is about Build 2020. As you know, Build is the main conference for developers from Microsoft. And again, we have a news about its cancellation / going virtual. This is a communication from Microsoft that says, the safety of our community is a top priority. In light of the health safety recommendation for Washington State, we will deliver our annual Microsoft Build event for developers as a digital event. We look forward to bringing together our ecosystem of developers in this new virtual format to learn, connect, and code together. Stay tuned for more details to come. As you know, as I said before, Microsoft Build is the conference for developers from Microsoft. And before, I think it used to be held in San Francisco, if I'm not wrong. But for a couple of years, they're doing it in Seattle. And as you may know, Seattle and the Washington State is one of the main epicenters of the outbreak of the new coronavirus in US. So again, Microsoft, as they did for the MVP Summit, everything is going virtual, and will be interesting seeing how this will happen. And I've been following on Twitter and other platforms about this. There is no clarity yet on how this is going to happen, but everyone is looking forward to Build. I think they're issuing some refund to the people that already bought the tickets. Stay tuned and let's see what other news we will have in this context. But again, another cancellation. And on the same kind of stream, there's also another conference update, this time for the Azure AI Conference. There hasn't been an official, blog post or article about this, but this came from Twitter, from the Twitter handle of the conference. And they say, as you know, we have been closely monitoring the health and safety conditions surrounding the concerns about the coronavirus COVID-19. We have made a decision to move this year's spring event to this fall. For more information, please check our website, azureaiconf.com. I think this is a first. So far, all the other conferences have been kind of canceled and made virtual. For the Azure AI Conference, instead, we've seen that they are moving it from spring to this fall. They don't have a date yet, but I think, again, this is a different approach from what we've seen so far, but we will see, I think, even more and more conferences and events being either made virtual, canceled, or postponed, like in this case. Let's move on. GitHub new mobile app is here and is now available for iOS and Android. The app for the popular code repository service, and actually this is a news from msn.com, but GitHub is much more than just a code repository service. The app is primarily designed to help developers manage projects while away from their PC, letting them organize tasks, give feedback on issues, respond to comments, and review and merge pull requests. Now, this app is being announced, if I'm not wrong, in GitHub Universe 2018, so about a year ago, I guess. And there's a terrific app. I've been trying that in the beta before. Now it's finally GA, available to everyone. You just go on the App Store or the Google Play Store and you can search for GitHub and you can download it. It's a really great app. And even though it's primarily designed, as the news said, for help manage projects, having like a overall situation of what's going on in your project. I was chatting with someone in GitHub, and apparently there's a lot of people using the mobile app also for code review, which is not something the app was originally designed for, but it's so powerful and it's so well made that people use it for almost day-to-day operations already. So if you haven't seen it yet, go on the Google Store or the Apple Store and download it. It's completely free, and just connect it to your GitHub account and you can start working on that. Really, really recommend it. Next, we have now more information about the general availability of WSL2, or Windows Subsystem for Linux 2. WSL2 will soon be officially available as part of Windows 10 version 2004. As we get ready for general availability, we want to share one additional change. We've removed the Linux kernel from the Windows OS image, and instead we'll be delivering it to your machine via Windows Update. This change will give you more agility and flexibility over Linux kernel updates in WSL2. Our end goal is for this change to be seamless. If you're not familiar with WSL or WSL2, it's actually the feature that allows you to run Linux inside Windows. All the Windows 10 now have WSL enabled or installed. You can enable it. And that allows you, as I said, to run Linux on Windows. The first version of WSL was really good, but still had some limitations and performance glitches. Now with WSL2, if you've been trying it in preview, it's much better. It's much faster. It allows you to run many more apps for Linux in Windows. This has been preview for a while already, and finally soon will be generally available. And as we seen in the news, there is a major change here, because now the Linux kernel is shipped directly with the operating system, with Windows. That means that you need to wait a major update of Windows to get the new Linux kernel. However, with the change they are going to implement, this will be part of a Windows update, which means that again will be much faster and much easier and much faster to update your Linux kernel of choice. And as they said, this change will be seamless. What does it mean is that when Windows 10 2004 will come out, that will not be there yet. So still in Windows 10 2004, the Linux kernel will be part of the OS image and then will be moved to Windows Update. But the good news is that if you enable WSL2 as part of Windows 10 2004, then you will not have to change anything when the delivery of the kernel will be moved to Windows Update. I've seen some news, and you can go also on the official GitHub repository of WSL2, and there's a lot of work going on in there to make sure that this will not impact current people using the system and all the people that will enable it as part of the new Windows 10 version. So again, if you are a developer, if you are a Linux enthusiast, if you have any application that need to run in Linux, I think WSL2 is a really good platform. I think this is a good news for all of us and for all the WSL2 users. Let's move on. This is another exciting news. This is just, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, but it's been announced that NPM is joining GitHub. Before I read the news, if you don't know what NPM is the Node Package Manager, and it's basically the repository for JavaScript packages, for Node packages primarily, but for all JavaScript packages. It's huge. It has, I think, about 1.3 million packages in it, and we talk about something like 75 billion download per month. So, the scale is huge. Let's dig into the news. This article is actually from the GitHub blog and is written directly by Nat Friedman, which is the CEO of GitHub. He says, "I'm excited to announce that GitHub has signed an agreement to acquire NPM. We at GitHub are honored to be part of the next chapter of NPM's story and to help NPM continue to scale to meet the needs of the fast-growing JavaScript community. for the millions of developers who use the public NPM registry every day, NPM will always be available and always be free. What to say? I think, in my opinion, is a good news for the ecosystem. NPM in the past had some minor, issues, especially on performance, and they had some problem in scaling. And I guess with the expertise of GitHub and ultimately of Microsoft, this will help NPM scaling, being better, being faster, being optimal for supporting the growing community and all the needs of that community. I've seen somewhere else, I think it was on Twitter, people being kind of worried about this because they say, GitHub is owned by Microsoft, so now GitHub is acquiring NPM, which means that NPM will be Microsoft. I don't think that's the case, and I don't think there's anything to worry about. Look at what Microsoft did and is doing with GitHub. There was a lot of concern in that as well when Microsoft acquired GitHub, but actually GitHub is going better by the day for the community. It's still free. It's still, scaling better, even better now. I think the same thing will happen with NPM, especially because if you look at how Microsoft and GitHub work, actually GitHub is still a completely independent company, and that assures to all the open source developers, to all the developers out there, and now to the NPM folks, that this will be kept in the same state as it is now. We'll just add some more support, more capabilities, more scalability to the service, and this is great. Moving on, this is Azure news. Azure Monitor for virtual machine is GA. We are announcing the general availability of Azure Monitor for VMs, which provides an in-depth view of VM performances, trends, and dependencies. And this support, of course, single VMs, but also VMs scale set, VMSS. If you use Azure, you know that the Azure Monitor for VMs has been there for a while, but it's always been in the context of the single VM or the single resource. What it means is that you could go to your VM part in your Azure portal, and you would have seen some of the metrics and some of the information in there directly. What this is instead is a dedicated blade in the Azure Monitor page, in which you will have all your VMs in there, VM and VMSS, and you can see the metrics and the monitorings from all of them. What they say is also, of course, this will work for both Linux and Windows, acquiring a lot of performance data, so you can troubleshoot guest level performance issue and VM dependencies across one another. So it's a really great tool, and I encourage all of you to take a look at this, because now it's finally GA, and so you can use it even in production on all your VMs. Next, Visual Studio 2019 new version. I don't actually have a news here, it's just the release page of Visual Studio, and now we have the version 16.5, which is being released. And I'm not going through all the new features and everything, but you'll have the link in the description. But there's a lot of new features going on here in any area. There's a lot of improvement in the Visual Studio IDE directly. There's quite a few new and nice features for debugging, and also the whole process has been streamlined and make it better. There's of course update in the Azure tools, especially for productivity, and more support even towards .NET Core and new features. And Azure Function v3 now is directly supported by the IDE itself for publishing as well. There's a bunch of new features for C++, for F#, again for .NET productivity, and there's a lot of new features about refactoring. So I encourage you to go there and take a look. Again, you will find the link in the description below. Another thing that is new there is the new Git experience. So if you use Git in, Azure DevOps or GitHub or any other source control, go and check it out, because it's cool and it's really, really nice. And of course, if you haven't downloaded yet, download the new Visual Studio 2019 16.5 and start experience those features by yourself. A new good news for our database friends, and it's the GA of private link for Azure SQL database and also for the open source databases. Now in general availability, private link enables users to have private connectivity from a Microsoft Azure Virtual Network to Azure SQL database. These features creates a private endpoint which maps to a private IP. And as I mentioned, this is not only for Azure SQL, but also for the OSS database. We're excited to announce also the general availability of Azure Private Link for Azure Database for MySQL, Azure Database for PostgreSQL Single Server, and Azure Database for MariaDB. What is Private Link? Private Link is a feature in Azure that now finally allows VMs and other services in one VNet to privately connect to some other PaaS services, in this case, SQL Azure, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, and MySQL. This has been a feature asked many times, because if you're not aware of that, right now, if you try to connect from inside a VNet to a PaaS service like SQL, you had to use the public hostname. And even though that doesn't mean that the service go through public internet, because one thing you need to know, and a lot of people are not aware of this, is that if you use from inside Azure a public hostname or another services in Azure, that connection will never leave the Azure backbone. If you are in the same region, will never leave even the region itself, but if the service is in another region, will never go to the public internet, and all the traffic will just transit within the Azure networking on the Azure backbone. But still, people wanted to have even more control and even more security over that, and this is where Private Link comes in place. Because again, basically it allows you to map automatically the service with a private IP. The additional routing that is necessary when using the public hostname will not be necessary anymore. And again, this works for the open source databases, this works for SQL Azure, and there's a lot of other services supporting that. Some of those are already GA, some of those are still in preview, so go and check it out on the Azure page if you want to have a more comprehensive list. But the good news here is that for the databases now, this is GA and you can start using it in your production. Last but not least, a celebration, if you will. Today we are delighted to announce that over 1 billion people have chosen Windows 10 across 200 countries, resulting in more than 1 billion active Windows 10 devices. With 100% of the Fortune 500 now using Windows 10 devices, it has become a critical platform for driving business transformation in their enterprise and beyond. So what to say? A great congrats to the Windows team, kudos to them, but also kudos to the Windows devices team, like the Surface line, which is contributing to the spread of Windows 10. If you're on Windows 10, you already know that the system and the platform itself is progressing basically by the day. It's getting better and better. It's not perfect, but I think no operating system is perfect. But I think it's a great advancement, even from Windows 8 or Windows 7, that some think being the most reliable Windows ever. I would say maybe it was true when Windows 10 came out, but nowadays I think Windows 10 is the best Windows ever made. If you're not on Windows 10 yet, just upgrade. That's my advice. And again, congratulations to Microsoft, kudos to the Windows team, and way to go. All right, this brings this episode of the M&AN Show to its end. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please like and subscribe. As usual, you will find all the links to the news in the description below. And let me know in the comment section if you have any feedback or comment, or if you want to discuss about the news we've presented here. In the description of the video, you also have all my social media platforms, so please feel free to add me in Twitter, LinkedIn, or whatever you prefer, so we can have a more interactive discussion. Thank you very much for joining me today again, and see you soon at Coder Day.